one hit line drive.
Want to lose weight and keep eating? I just love to ask for you.
In my financial situation.
Before the deliberations begin later this.
Look, popular pie plant pictured here.
When my nurse practitioner asked me if I wanted to do a study for cancer survivors with anxiety and depression, I was offended. I'd come a long way. It had been 2 years. I'd gotten through the chemo. I'd gotten through the relationship breakup, the loss of my little dog, Rusty. I didn't have post-traumatic stress syndrome anymore. I didn't overreact at laundromats anymore. I knew I could be flexible about where I folded my laundry. And I was cancer-free. In fact, fighting for my life was really good for my self-esteem. I learned something that a Midwestern girl doesn't necessarily know. I learned how to stand up for myself. I stood up to doctors. I stood up to family members. I stood up to cab drivers. I stood up to anyone who wasn't good for me. I got rid of all the toxic people. And then there was no one left. When I was in treatment, every minute was exciting. All my decisions were life or death. How much should I do radiation? How much chemo should I do? I stayed up late researching things, but everything mattered. It was like fighting for my life. And I'd survived. And now my decisions were, should I get almond or soy milk? It was actually kind of boring. I wanted to talk about the meaning of life. I didn't want to talk about Starbucks. I felt separate from other people. I felt like I'd been on a trip to another planet, and now I was back, and I forgot how to have a regular conversation. I just wanted to talk to people about trauma and life and death. So, okay, I said. Tell me a little more about this study. I'm normally anti-drug, but I thought there's no harm in listening. So it was a national study, and apparently it started at UCLA and Johns Hopkins, and now it was being done at NYU and Bellevue. Originally, it was supposed to be, I think, for people who were actually dying of cancer. It was supposed to help ease their final moments, but they had expanded the study to cancer survivors. They explained to me that there would be 2 drug dosings. There would be the study drug, and then there'd be a placebo, and there were 4 months of free therapy. I didn't really want any more therapy, but I do like a good deal. So what's the drug? Tell me, I said, and they said it was psilocybin. Magic mushrooms. Magic mushrooms? Berkeley, Timothy Leary, Ram Dass? I had never had the guts to do any of those. I had friends who had, but I knew if I was in my 20s, I was already so hyper. I would have been the person that would just fly off the roof and think I could fly. But now I'm over 40, and I figure if I can handle chemotherapy, I can handle mushrooms. And this is an FDA study, so it's legal. My friend Joe says that I am the luckiest unlucky person he's ever met. I had cancer, but now I get to do mushrooms. Legally. Sign me up. I was patient number 13. It was like winning the cancer lottery. You know, when I was in treatment, I had gotten free wigs and makeup, and now I get free mushrooms. Somebody's finally trying to help me. it occurred to me, since I'd recovered, I had been fostering dogs and stuff and caring for rescue animals. And at this time, when I met with Dr. Ross and the people who were doing the study, I realized that they wanted to rescue me, that I had somebody who wanted to foster me. So after a few months of therapy, it came time for the dosing. Just give me the drug. I had two therapists. I got to the study room. We'd been having the therapy in this really lovely sort of living room environment. And I get there, and my two doctors had set up two chairs that were going to sit across from this couch that had been, it was a futon that I had been sitting on previously, and now they had folded it out to be bed. And they had their two chairs, and they were going to stare at me while I tripped, basically. And I thought, that seems kind of boring for them, but okay. My friends were all like, if you're doing new mushrooms, you really need to go outside. You got to go into the woods, because that's what's great about with nature and all this stuff. And I'm like, nah, this is an FDA study. I'm pretty sure I'm not leaving the room. They had asked me to bring some stuff from home, some just meaningful things, and I brought some pictures of family, and I brought my Rusty's first toy. I brought his duck. I had his squeaky duck. And the first thing we did when I got there was we stood in a circle, and they asked me for an intention. They had a special pill. They had weighed me, actually, so it was like a synthetic mushroom thing, I guess, and we stood in a circle. They had it actually in a chalice, and they pulled out the pill, and they said that we held hands, and they said, all right, what's your intention? And, peace, joy, happiness, I don't know, just give me the drug. I want it. My intention is to do this drug. I really want to see what it's like. They had even designed, they were so precise and so caring, they had actually put together, all the doctors had gotten together, I guess, and selected the perfect music for the soundtrack that I would be listening to for the time. I had headphones that I'd be listening to, and they had an eye mask. So this really was going to be my internal experience. So I took the pill, and I laid down on the futon, and I waited, and I waited, and I didn't feel anything. Damn, it's the placebo. And then there started to be this rush of information. It was a complete, total overload of sensory information. It was like every yoga class, every philosophy, every psychology, every possible artistic in my head at the same time. I mean, it was a complete overload. I lifted the mask to look at Dr. Ross and see if he's still there, and he just said, TLO, trust and let go. Okay, I put the mask back on, and the rushing, the information starts coming, and then the images start coming, and first I see these two, cow heads. They were like papier-mâché cow heads just flying through the sky. I don't know what that was about. And then there was a cat chewing on my bicycle on the little cord thing by the brakes, and I don't know what that was about. And it was just coming really, really fast, and I clutched Rusty's squeaky toy to me, and I'm trusting, and I'm letting go. And then I looked at Dr. Ross again, and I laughed, because Dr. Ross is the head of substance and alcohol abuse at Bellevue Hospital, and he's giving me drugs. Oh, it was amazing, and it felt like the music was creating the whole experience. There were only two moments in this 5-hour experience that were really sad, and the first one was when I thought about Rusty and I missed him because he had died, and the other one was a really quick feeling of self-hatred, that I didn't like myself. And I was shocked because I didn't know that I could feel that, but the very second that I felt that, I thought, that's ridiculous. I'm amazing. There's no reason not to like me. I'm really cool. That's ridiculous. The music was amazing, and then the images kept coming, but they were more like sketches than hallucinogens, which is what I thought it would be. It was more like little sketches. And then there was this countryside and this house. It was sort of like a little house on the prairie, and there was this lady there, and she was really natural and beautiful. And I thought maybe she was me. or someone I admired greatly. And then I started to think about the people in my life. I thought about an ex-boyfriend from a long time ago, and I guess I could have married him. And then I thought about the recent painful breakup, and I realized that that was the past and that he wasn't supposed to be here. And then I saw this circle. It was like I was floating above this circle, and I looked down, and it was a dinner table. And it was like it was divided into like a pie chart. And part of that pie was cancer. And cancer was at the table. It was at the dinner table. And I realized that it actually belonged there. And that it was okay. My family was there too. And I thought about how I judged them for not saying the right things, but I knew that they loved me, that they have their own struggles, and I love them too. And they were there, and cancer was there at the table with my family, and it wasn't like it was supposed to be there. And then this tagline came into my head was, cancer started the conversation, but it doesn't end it. And I felt this intensity of being alive, and then I remembered that I was an artist, and that I used to paint, and that I used to draw, and I stopped doing that, and I've been isolating, and I needed to share more. And I remembered that I used to go on stage, and I used to tell jokes, and I missed that, and I realized I needed to participate again. I needed to participate again. And then I looked at the table again, and the IRS was at the table because it was just after tax time, and I've been doing my taxes, and I thought, I don't want to waste this trip on the IRS. But then I realized, no, this is the part of the story. The IRS is at the table too. Everything's at the table because we're all connected. You know, everything belongs there, and the bad relationships and the good relationships and the people that die and the people that are still alive, and that everybody has something to contribute, and we're all connected. There's a oneness between all of us, and I realize that I'm not isolated, and that I don't have to be isolated, and that I need to participate. You know, somebody makes your clothes, and somebody builds the building, and somebody does part of everything. We can't be disconnected because we are connected. Eventually, the drug euphoria ended, and it's been about, I guess, almost 3 years now. And, you know, my life is still not perfect. I don't have the perfect job. I don't have the perfect relationship. But since that day, I have never felt separate again.
That was patient number 13 from Gail Thomas. Gail is a recent Moth StorySlam winner. She's also something of a Renaissance woman. She's a writer, actor, filmmaker, and a recovered lawyer. She also writes speeches and scripts for award shows, so famous people have uttered her words. And I'm so glad she came into my studio to tell us that extraordinary story. Gail will be appearing at this month's Risk show in New York at the Pitt Theater on Thursday, May 28th. She will not be telling this story, so you'll hear something new. And I hope you go see her. I'll be there. This has been Modern Stories Mix, Episode 4. I'm your host, Julie Threlkeld. To get more information about this episode and other episodes, please point your browser to modernstoriesmix.com. I have 5 storytellers lined up over the next month or so to come record, and I romanced a few more yesterday at, actually I should mention this, there's a new monthly storyteller meetup at QED in Astoria, Queens, and it's a nice time. It's a few hours sitting around with other storytellers or story show producers and hosts, and storytellers are pleasant people. And QED is a great space. If you haven't been to it, it just had its 6-month birthday. It's a space started by Cambry Cruz, and it's really this kind of warm cultural jewel in the heart of Queens. And I love going there, and I encourage you to go there too, because it's a good time. It's good value, and you'll see a lot of talented people there for very little money or for free. In other news, I got a longer theatrical storytelling piece accepted into the Dark Festival, which is going to be at the Tank Theater in Midtown Manhattan this summer in late July, early August. I don't have a lot of details on it yet, but I'm working hard on that show, and that's mostly what I'm doing these days. And I will post more information about it as I have it on modernstories.com. And lastly, I would love it if you love the show, if you would go to iTunes and give me some stars and a nice review, and it'll help other people discover the show. Oh, my stomach's growling. Can you hear that? It's because I'm hungry for success. Okay. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back in June with episode 5. Bye.
Some have used these drugs to journey into the uncharted tunnels of the mind in search of medical and scientific truth. Others look behind the curtain just for kicks.